TitleMatchNetwork.com.
There's some guaranteed money with the top guys. Sting, Luger, Steiner's had a big contract. Road Warriors had left already and went there. Buff Bagwell got some big deals because Vince wanted him out of there. As after I was gone.
Was there a lot of was there like a rivalry at all? Like, did you guys ever?
Oh, you didn't feel that way.
No,
I didn't. A lot of guys didn't really feel that way.
How about like amongst the top guys? Did you ever hear them talking like what they're doing is shit. We're way better. You know what I mean? Like.
Well, WWE was more entertainment back then, and WCW was more wrestling. But it was like, one day you eat Burger King, one day you eat McDonald's. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
And still around then was USWA. There was Tim McVern was at the tail end.
But amongst the top, it was WWF and then
WCW
and then everybody else.
Yeah. But Vince was the leader.
You guys didn't feel like it was us versus them. It was just kind of like that's another company and we're here.
You like it because there are more jobs, just like in anything you do with the economy, and the business was dwindling and jobs were dwindling.
Right.
You didn't really look at that like that. You didn't.
How did you find out your time in WCW was up? How did you find out who contacted you?
Steve had some music. My old partner Steve had some music. And his own music, and they wanted it on contract. Steve wouldn't relinquish the rights, and we was on verbal agreement the first year and a half we were there. Then they put us on contract, and Steve never would sign the contract, and they let him go. And they really just didn't have the last 6 months I was there. I mainly just did a lot of TVs. Some house shows. I did work with Buff Bagwell a lot during that when he started, and
Marcus Alexander Bagwell.
Yeah. Mark Merrow, Johnny B. Bad. I was there when Dusty put the gimmick on him with the Real Richard thing. Worked with him a lot when I did house shows, But I kind of well knew then. And then Bill Watts came in. Yeah. And Dusty was still there, and Bill Watts was getting rid of guys that toward the end of their contracts. Saved the company a lot of money. Bill Watts did, and I'd worked for Bill Watts, but a lot of guys were getting let go. Terry Taylor was out of there. Ricky Morton, Tommy Rich, a lot of guys like that were finishing up.
Do you think they just didn't believe in you as a singles wrestler?
Well, I'd been there 2.5 years. Watts was bringing in some of his own, some people, and guys that the contracts were up on guaranteed money, and he was talking guys down on their current deals they had. Some of them, you know what I mean? Some of them were. Restructuring their contract, I guess you'd say, and to put pressure on them and do. So a lot of guys just from the contract, no matter who they were. Arn Anderson, he let him go for a little while.
Right.
They were done. They were done. Didn't matter who it was, they were done.
So
and he just jobbed a lot of guys out till their contract was up.
You don't think it was anything personal against your work? You just think it was a money thing, or
His job was to cut the budget, and he did. He cut the budget big. Then he got a big bonus. And then he set up the thing in remember when New Japan worked together with WCW?
Yes.
Watts helped put that deal together. While Watts was over there, Watts had him playing the Mid-South tapes in Japan, so he cut a side deal. I don't blame him. But a lot of guys, when their contract was near up, 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, didn't matter. You were gone.
So you knew it was coming?
Yeah.
Did you do anything to try to?
I worked with Dustin a lot during that as a heel. When Bill Watts was Bill Watts' first day there, I worked with Dustin on TV.
What was?
They had a good match, but I mean.
What were your impressions of Dustin Rhodes at the time?
Oh, he had already worked Japan a few times for Baba, and he'd worked Florida, a little bit. He had worked.
Did you think that he was?
He worked Tennessee too. Yeah, he was a great worker.
I mean, did you think he had it?
Yeah. He had great matches. Him and Steve Austin used to have some good matches.
Yes.
For the TV title.
They had a big feud on TV.
Great matches.
Did you? I mean, were you feeling upset, or were you worried about your future? Like, did you do anything to try to extend your run?
There wasn't nothing. I mean, I kept training, kept in shape. I actually got custody of my son, and I had 6 months there, and so I felt like that I was blessed to have gotten time off to be paid while I was at home, and I was only working about twice. About 2 TV tapings a month. Is all they were doing every 2 weeks or maybe every week. Maybe every week I was going to TV, going to Atlanta, and I'd be there 1 day, 1 or 2 days, 2 days.
So was it
out of the week? And back then guys were working 7 days a week, and
it wasn't like impending doom for you.
Well, I was just saving my money. I had custody of my son, and I needed to be home then because I won custody from my son's mother, and she'd had some drug problems, you know. So, yeah, I felt like it was the right thing, and I kind of knew I was done. Yeah.
Had you talked to...
Cornette called me for a year. So after Jim Cornette left, he called me once a month at least for a solid year, and I'd see him around. He'd come to shows. He'd always tell me don't get rid of the rebel thing, and he did that with me in Smoky Mountain.
Right.
Jimmy did.
You end up, after you leave WCW...
I was kind of discouraged. I wanted to quit the business kind of, but Jim Cornette is the only reason I didn't quit the business, probably in 1992.
Well,
he really is.
You end up at Smoky Mountain. Before you ended up there, had you tried to reach out to WWF to try to get a job there?
A lot of guys got jobs, okay? And here's something I didn't say and did, and it come back to bite me. A lot of guys that got let go during that time got jobs for Vince. Matt Bourne, did the Clown.
Blink.
Terry Taylor, a lot of other guys. I could go on and on. Well, anyway, in 1987 or 1990, Jerry Jarrett wanted to put me together with Jeff Jarrett, and he wanted to do this in '87, but I wanted Steve. I wanted to stick with Steve. He wanted me to come and work for him in '87 to tag with Jeff, and I stayed with Steve. Nothing against Jeff, but I stayed with Steve, and me and Steve were best friends, the Armstrong family. And in 1990, again, when I was getting ready to leave, working for Jerry Jarrett and go work for WCW, he wanted to put me with Jeff then and have Fargo with us. You know, in 1990. This is a true story. And again, I wanted to go with Steve, and I knew I'd make better money in Atlanta than I would with Jerry Jarrett, and as Nationwide TV, and you wanted that exposure. And I knew Kevin liked us, Eddie liked us, Jim Cornette, you know what I mean? You know, and and I knew then, and so in 1992, Jerry Jarrett was a consultant for Vince. So Jerry Jarrett got me back and didn't bring me in, didn't give me a job. I talked to him about it, and he brought Steve in, gave Steve a job. It was Lance Cassidy. Steve had been let go from them, and he wouldn't bring me in. And I'd heard before that, and this is back in '87, '88. Barry Horowitz told me this, and he gave our pictures to Pat Patterson, and Shawn Michaels kind of dogged us.
Really?
And, oh yeah.
What, was there heat between you and?
Yeah, because they had got let go, and Bob had let them go. Okay, Bob Armstrong let them go when the thing he said queers are people too. Ronnie West told him to let them go, and they kind of, not that they weren't great workers, but the rock and roll thing was Rock and Roll Express, especially down south. Not as much to up north, but down south. And Shawn's thing was, he said Bob Armstrong fired me to bring his son and Tracy Smothers over there. So we had heat with Shawn. Probably still do.
Huh.
Always.
Have you ever talked to Shawn about that?
Well, in '96, when I was working for Vince,
right.
Before, Undertaker, right? It's a true story. I'll do it real quick.
Go ahead.
I'll do it real quick. I knew Mark. I didn't know Undertaker. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I was standing there. Remember the guy Cloudy, Chris Candido, God rest his soul, and Tom Pritchard was doing the Body Donis.
Yeah.
All right. They brought in Cloudy. He was Chris's buddy, good guy. Wanted to work, would do anything. Had him as a woman. We're standing there. My first day. I look and I says, Mark was going off about him, Undertaker. White boy and I was standing, dirty white boy and I was standing talking to him. You could tell he kind of was distant, wasn't the same. And he said, some guys will do anything to get in this business, won't they? He'd be a queer, he'd be a woman like that. And when he said that, I just laughed because he'd always ribbed, cut up with Mark. He always had a smile on his face. He didn't then. He wasn't dead then, you know. and I just said, yeah. I said, how long you been dead now? And I'm just joking. I thought he'd pop. Oh God, he'd come up, it was all red, and I broke down and backed off. And went, oh, Mark, it's Tracy, come on. I've been there 2 hours and messed up. Shawn standing there. He goes, what's going on? And a little bit after that, and I was doing something, and Shawn said something to me. He goes, oh, so Smothers, you got a job? And he always called me Smothers. And I said, yeah, I guess. I knew I had heat with him, you know. And I said, yeah, as far as I know, I don't, you know, like that. I said, I'm just hanging out. He goes, yeah. He says, because the territory shut down a year or two after Shawn and them were gone. He goes, yeah. He goes, Bob Bob Armstrong, your dad, fired me to bring you in, bring his son in and you in like that and noon. I went, Shawn, that's 6 years ago. I looked and I said, you're on top right now. What the hell are you worried about me for? Why are you worried about that? And I was just joking. I thought he cut at me. I thought because he's kind of joking. He wasn't joking.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.